Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting. Envisioned Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success. An affiliate of Direct Impact Broadcasting and Creative Broadcasting, presenting the EmPower Hour with Jaresha, a show that shares the stories behind the journeys of leaders, influencers, and motivators. The EmPower Hour with Jaresha begins now.
Welcome to EmPower Hour with Jaresha. I am your host, Jaresha Moore. A little bit about myself. I am a best-selling author with over 18 years of combined experience in education, finance, healthcare, business management, and development. Owner and founder of EmPower on Purpose, LLC, where we provide personal and professional coaching and consulting services. Certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, and owner of Envisioned Broadcasting radio station. Before I introduce my guest this evening, I would like to announce two upcoming workshops sponsored by EmPower on Purpose. One is a networking virtual vision board workshop that is offered the first Sunday of every month. The next one is happening on July 7th. This is a goal-setting vision board workshop and online networking event. During the workshop, you will learn a proven framework to help you tap into your true desires and dreams. Use those desires to set intentional goals and then outline an achievable plan. You will break all traditional goal-setting philosophies during this workshop. You will also receive worksheets that will help you in completing your vision board effortlessly. Register today to enjoy an amazing atmosphere with great vibrations, laughter, fun, while you write your vision with power and purpose. The other workshop is a planner meetup event happening in the Dayton, Ohio area at the Dayton Metro Library on Sunday, July 14th at 2 p.m. that is. This is a free event for all of the planner babes in the Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus, Ohio area who love to plan, organize, and would love to come together with other planner babes to share planner tools and ideas. To register or to find out more information about both, please visit www.empoweronpurpose.com. So this week's empowerment quote is, if you really want to live your life to the fullest and realize your greatest potential, you must be willing to run the risk of making some people mad. People may not like what you do. People may not like how you do it, but these people are not living your life. You are, by Ayanna Van Zandt. That is the absolute truth. Listen, folks, it has been my experience that you can't and won't please everybody, no matter what it is. So you shouldn't try to. I can't stress how important it is to stay in your lane and live your own life by your own terms. So without further delay, is with other inspiring coaches, authors, and thought leaders on her personal development podcast, Kicking It with Daree. When Daree is not reading, traveling, jumping into a line dance, or on social media, she enjoys spending time with her beautiful daughter, Kayla. Welcome, Daree. How are you?
Hi, Jaresha. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Yes, me too. This is so exciting. I'm actually live. I, get to fix all my mistakes on my podcast, but now you're getting the raw, real deal.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So I just shared some of your amazing story. I would love if you could share, a little bit more with the listeners about your journey and background and really how you really came to do all the amazing things you're doing now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been quite a journey, when you, read all the things that I do now, it's like, oh, words? Like, I do all that?
Yeah.
But it's not all at once, It's not like you just, pop up and start, doing things. A lot of us, have our own businesses and we're multi-passionate, but, it takes a while to figure out, what order to start things and how to go. So my backstory is this. As you mentioned, I grew up in New York. I grew up in central New York, not New York City, people. There's a whole state of New York. It's not just the 5 boroughs. And I grew up in the middle of that state. And I'm creative and technical. Like, I've seen that throughout my whole life. I love words, spoken, written words. And I didn't always like my voice, but now, as you said a minute ago, I use my voice all the time, and I'll get back to that in a second. But I remember being in high school. I really started my love of writing when I was very young. And I remember being in high school when I had this black and white composition notebook, the standard old ones that probably cost like 20 cents right now. And I would write scenes of this made up soap opera. I would write short stories, but they were soap opera and I have all these different characters doing different things. I'd cut out pictures out of magazines of models and things, and they would be my characters that I would visualize. And I would pass around the composition notebook in class. I was a pretty good student. I wasn't supposed to be passing around a notebook or notes or anything, but that's what I did. And at lunchtime, all of us would get together, and the girls would be like, yeah, this person should do this. This person should punch this person out. This person should walk in and see this. And they would give me feedback on the stories. And I, was creative in that way, but I was also an avid bookworm, and I really loved to read, and I loved to learn. I read more fiction when I was young, and then it gradually moved to nonfiction. So there's so many ways that I'm both creative and technical. I got a Bachelor of Science first, and then I got a master's later. And the bachelor's is in professional and technical communication, which is a big mouthful. It's it doesn't even barely fit across the diploma that it's on.
Yeah.
And I went to the college I went to is called SUNY. It was called SUNY Tech, and I think they changed the name of it some years ago and changed it to Polytechnic University or something. But anyway, I went to a technical upper division college, meaning that everyone at that time had to transfer in. So you already had to have enough credits in your first 2 years to go to SUNY Tech. You couldn't just go to SUNY Tech right out of high school. So I went to SUNY in Buffalo first, and then I ended up coming back and going to SUNY Tech. And when I graduated from there, I graduated in the beginning of December of that year. And no lie, February 2nd, 6 weeks later or so, maybe 2 months later, I started the job that I have now. I work in corporate America still, and I still have that job. It's been 20 years this past February. So, I am doing a lot. I'm doing the most right now, but there was an evolution to it. I remember my first job in that February of 99. I was in this D.C. suburb, and I was there until they closed the building, and the product line that I was working on transitioned to some contractors in India. So I decided that I wanted to leave the D.C. area anyway, so I ended up moving a few hours down the road to Hampton Roads, Virginia, and I was there for about 6 years, and I want to say back in '05, I actually got, the pink slip. I got a letter saying, you're not going to be needed anymore, blah, 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 because I wasn't assigned to a product line anymore. And at the very last minute, I want to say 2-3 weeks after that, I got a last-minute message saying you're going to be retained. And that's why I'm still here, because they haven't, let me go. They found use for me, which is awesome. Because I know people talk about millennials now and stuff, but in my generation, it's still unheard of for someone to be with one company for that long.
Yes.
So back in those early days of my career, the company had, it was like the good old days. We had unlimited drinks, you could go to the fridge, get whatever soda, whatever drink you wanted, and just, it was all yours. They had this great traveling budget. They approved everything, rental car, you want to go here, you want to go there, training, conferences, all that. So I remember going to conferences and I would talk, I'd speak about my position, about technical writing to different places. Like one of the conferences I spoke at a long time ago, even before I was a mom, is STC, which stands for Society of Technical Communication. And there's different opportunities that I would try to get myself into to speak, because I knew that I loved to speak. I knew that I had a message, even though I didn't know all the particulars about, how to get that. And this ties back into me using my voice and, being a kid and being, teased about my voice, but then ending up really being able to use it as an asset and to empower others.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, also, in Central New York, I went to church, and I didn't go every day. I went for the Sunday afternoon programs and stuff, but I didn't go all the time. It was quite a ways away from my house. And my mom always had us in all of those afternoon programs, the Easter play and all the other programs and ceremonies. Sometimes I'd be the mistress of ceremonies, and I would introduce everyone. I would sing with the choir. So there were a lot of different opportunities that I had in a safe environment growing up to be able to speak in front of people and to get used to being in front of people.
Absolutely.
And I personally was, I don't really recall ever being afraid to perform, not when I was a kid and not when I was a young adult, because I didn't end up leaving there until I was about 22, I think. So I always loved speaking, being in front of people, performing, presenting, and I would look for things to present. And then I got away from that for a while. And when I got to Hampton Roads, Virginia, at that point I was working from home. So I was obviously, kind of isolated. And I said, what can I do to speak more? And so I joined a Toastmasters group. And the Toastmasters group is a place for not only me to be able to hone my speaking skills and get better and learn more of the technical aspects of writing a speech and all that, but also to meet people, to network, to make friends. Sometimes when you network, you meet colleagues and partners, and sometimes you meet friends, and sometimes they end up being the same person. And so there was no way I could lose, And at the time when I started Toastmasters, my daughter was maybe 4. And I would bring her with me often, not all the time, but if I didn't have anybody to watch her, I'd bring her with me. So she grew up all the time seeing me go up in front of people and speak. And, she doesn't love to speak in front of people, but she's not as afraid, I think, as someone who, wasn't exposed to it. So that was a blessing that my mother gave me, putting me out there in church.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so you mentioned Toastmasters group, and it's been my experience too. So the local chapter that's here in the Dayton, Ohio area, wonderful group to really get connected, and if you're having that fear of really speaking in front of people, an excellent group to get connected with. And as you mentioned, you meet some colleagues, you meet those that you can really connect with, and really help you on your own growth journey with learning to speak in front of other people. So I know that you've mentioned that you're a technical writer and a speaker, and a certified life coach and podcast host and entrepreneur. You're such a busy lady. So can you share more as far as how do you juggle it all, and a mother as well?
Oh my gosh!
How do you juggle it all?
Well, like I said, I wasn't doing all of these things all at once, and I don't really think that I could physically maintain all those balls up in the air by myself. The technical writing started, in the late 90s. I didn't get certified as a life coach or do my podcast or the voiceovers or anything until like the last 5 years. So, there's a big spread there. I became an author before I did the coaching and the podcasting. So there's a spread. So I don't want people to think, oh my goodness, she's just one of those like, multi-hyphenate people, whatever, like superwoman, like whatever.
Yes.
So a lot of us, some people start off as a coach or something else, and then they fall into those same things, but they fall into it in a different order. I can tell you that when I started doing technical writing in the late 90s, I was in an office those first few years in D.C., and I was the youngest person there. I was like 22 years old. I was the youngest person there. I was engaged to my first husband at the time. I didn't have a child. So I basically grew up in that office with coworkers that were like, 20, 30, 40 years older than I was. I remember my former manager, she was like a second mother to me. She was a little short white lady. We didn't have much in common, but for all intents and purposes, when I look back, she was like another mother to me, because when I moved to D.C., my mom was still in New York. So it was like, okay, how do I navigate these things? And I would go to her and talk to her about personal things, even though she was there to be my manager. I remember she was the one that encouraged me to get my master's degree, because I had no intentions on going back to college. I was like, man, I finished what I needed to do. I'm done. But she was like, no. She said, there's this tuition assistance program, Daree. You've got to, like, take advantage of this. And what I come to find out is that not only would the company, pay for my degree as long as it was in a certain field and, I got B grades or better, but she was doing it at the same time to get her bachelor's. She said, I want to get my bachelor's degree. Wait a minute. She's going to get she's trying to get her bachelor's by the time she's 50, which goes to show you that we all have different kinds of goals, and there's no shame in, going for something or wanting to do many things and feeling like, well, time is running out for me. I'm too old now. I might as well just hang it up because, all these other young people, all these millennials are out here, all these whatever are out here, and, my time has passed. No. My manager, who was 49 years old, talking about, I need to get my bachelor's, and I want you to get your master's on the company dime. So
that's right.
She really, encouraged me in many ways. I haven't spoken to her verbally in many years, but we've never been out of touch. I always send her birthday and Christmas cards and all of that. She's watched my daughter grow up through something that you want to do, because it's not. And like I said, all these different things that I'm doing, it's all a part of who I am, but it's a part of a journey. It wasn't like I just started doing everything all at once, You just got to, when the time is right, you invest in the time and you make it happen. You go through different seasons. Being a single parent with a child at age 3, or being any kind of parent, single or with a partner, when your child or children are 3 and 5 and 7, is completely different from when they're teenagers. It's completely different from when they're grown with their own children. So those different seasons, whether you have a partner or not, are going to dictate, how thin you can spread yourself, and what you can accomplish. I think you've got to be realistic and not beat yourself down because you're seeing other people traveling the world. They're posting their pictures from Dubai on Facebook and everything, and you're like, man, I want to go to Dubai. Like, I can't even go to Hawaii, and that's in the U.S. You know, it's like, that's my personal thing, and I wanted to do that so badly when I turned 30, which was quite a while ago. But this year is the year that I'm making it happen, and I'm going to Hawaii. I'm actually going to be going on a solo trip to Hawaii for my birthday, and it took me over a decade to finally line everything up to make it happen. But, you know, I don't believe that. Yeah, Jaresha, it's like I don't feel like, you know, I don't feel like at the time I felt like I was missing out because my friends that didn't have kids was doing it big, but I haven't missed out on anything. You know, what's meant for me to do, you know, is going to happen when it's supposed to happen.
That's right. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, there's no time like the present when it comes down to, you know, wanting to reach for your dreams. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, the lady that you were working with that went back for her bachelor's. You know, it took me some years to finish my undergrad, but, you know, I was determined to actually finish that.
As well. And in our discussion, she suggested that, you know, you have some things that you probably want to offer people. Why don't you write a book about your life, you know? Because I told her I wanted to be a professional motivational speaker. I wanted to be a life coach. And, you know, people tell their story. Usually they have a book. They have something. Usually when someone gets off the stage, they don't just leave quietly. You know, they tell you about something that they're offering. And I was like, oh, no, I had a whole lot of self-doubt. Or anything, and I think that those stories are very important. I'm not belittling them, but I felt like my story, because it was, quote, regular, wasn't as important as some of those types of stories. And so, you know, because I didn't have a dramatic backstory that was made for film, you know, I was like, oh, no, nobody's going to care. And she said, Daree, she was like, you have a story that needs to be told. Like, don't discount it. Don't put yourself down. I think that there's a lot of people that could be helped by what you have to say. So I started compiling stories from my past with the help of my trusty journals from high school. I have been journaling since I was like 12 years old, 12, 13, and it started off on loose leaf paper. Then I got cute and fancy with it, with the little diaries and stuff with the little lock on the side. You know, I have the whole, you know, rainbow of journals. And my goal with writing What's Wrong with Me is to help other young women who were struggling with those issues of self-esteem and stuff that I was going through. And a lot of the feedback that I got from women that said, you know, listen, I'm going to read this first before I give it to my kid, which I totally understand, is she ain't getting this book. Like, this is my book. She going to get her own because I needed this book. Like, 30, 40-year-old women are telling me, like, this book helped me. So it was very well received. I discussed a lot of different stories from my childhood that dealt with, media influence, watching music videos and stuff, premarital sex that I engaged in, family and personal relationships, because I was always vying for the attention of my dad, and I really, really wanted his approval. And my mom was easy to talk to, but my dad was like a wall. And so I just talked about all these different stories. And then what I did was not just the story, but also looking back on it in present day and, as a then 30-something, writing it, saying, these are the things that I would have told my younger self. Like, if I could go back and tell the young Daree, listen, this is what you need to do, or this is what you don't need to worry about this person or whatever, or things that I would have liked to have heard from a and they just weren't those type of people that was giving me advice that I could talk to, that I could, like in the movie Soul Food and all that. I didn't have that soul food experience. I didn't have it. So I'm like, I'm going to kind of be my own mentor or be a mentor for the youth of today, because there's not, unless you, when you take out the social media piece and get to the root, it's all the same stuff. Like, it's just a new generation, and it might manifest in a few different ways because now we're more, open to different kinds of bullying, and there's cyberbullying, and there's other ways to get at people. But the root of it all, the teen pregnancies and the low self-esteem and this hating of yourself and your body image, those things are nothing new. It's just a new generation.
Right.
And that these things, whether you see it in your own life or with sisters or friends, when you leave that stuff unchecked, then, you become a 30, 40, 50-year-old woman that's still operating as that 12-year-old,
That's right.
that wounded child.
Absolutely. I have a teenage daughter, myself, and, I can't stress how important it is to have those discussions and have that open communication about self-love. Like you said, we live in the day and age where it's all about social media, and they're looking at, the stars, and, they want to be like the stars and all of that. And so it's so important to have that communication. And it's really, great to hear that you actually have, the book series that is truly there to help those teens, have those discussions. And, whether it's, having this discussion with your mom, after reading that book, or maybe it's something, that parents can read along with their daughter, but I definitely think it's so important to have those discussions, with the teens. So let's talk about your latest book, called Ending the Blame Game. Tell us more about what this book is about and your inspiration behind writing that one.
Yeah, that one was completely different. That one was not inspired by me, although I'm sure I could have put my 2 cents in. I didn't need to. I ended up one day, I don't remember why, but one day, one of my first cousins, he is about maybe 5 or 6 years older than me, so, we're not that far apart. At the time, I was living in Atlanta, and he was living in Dallas. And he called me, and we hadn't talked in many years. And he was like, you know what, Daree, I'm getting a divorce. He was calling me Ree. He was like, Ree, I'm getting a divorce. And I was like, what? And he, was with his wife from, age 16 or 17, high school sweethearts. And, they had twin girls together as well as another son. And I'm like, man, you have a beautiful family. What's going on? And we ended up talking on the phone for, 4 hours. And the main gist of it was that, this generation, the last, 15, 20 years, looks at marriage and relationships completely different than our grandparents did. We talked about the way that our grandparents interacted, and he knew them better than I did because I didn't meet my the grandparents that I shared with my cousin or on my father's side, and I didn't end up meeting them until I was about 14 or 15. So I didn't really grow up with them the way he did. But they stayed together until they died. And, the way that they were with each other is like, people don't do that anymore. Just like I was talking about a minute ago with staying in corporate America, being with one company for 20 years. Ain't nobody trying to stay with nobody for 20 years no more. Like, forget about being together for 50 years. And so, and I'm not even 50 yet, so I know that's not going to happen for me. So I'm just like, it's a completely different day and age. And what I ended up doing was, I was blogging a lot at the time, and I put out a call on Twitter and other places for people that were willing to share their stories, Black men in particular, that were willing to share their stories about, trying to find love, trying to maintain relationships, and co-parenting with their children's mother, whether it was due to divorce or maybe they never got married and they didn't want to, whatever. And then I also I weaved those stories together, because after doing all those different interviews, some were online and some were in person, through men all across the country, there were so many similarities. These men did not know each other. There was only maybe like 2 or 3 men that knew each other, and all the rest of them did not know each other at all. And there were so many repetitive themes that popped up. So the book almost wrote itself as far as like dividing up the chapters and the topics that we're going to discuss. And what I ended up doing was, even though these guys didn't know each other, it's nonfiction in the sense that these are their real stories, but it's fiction because not only did I use fake names, but I weaved them together, those characters together, as if they knew each other, sort of like the movie The Best Man. Like, the people are having a reunion. So I kind of wrote it that way. So I don't really know if it's considered fiction or nonfiction, because, the content is really true, even though the names, are to protect the innocent. They're changed to protect the innocent. So, that was a great experience, because I got to promote that book. My book launch was fabulous. It was really great to be able to get together with people and talk about relationships. But it wasn't like I was just giving these issues, voice. I was also bringing in different therapists, counselors, coaches to comment on some of these different things. So I had, someone that is a legal analyst, an Esquire. She is the one that commented on the legal chapter that talked about child support and things like that. She was the one that, gave her opinion about that. Then maybe there was another kind of topic that the men were discussing, and then I would give that chapter to another therapist, and they would comment on the situations going on there. So I am the one that did the work of writing and publishing the book, but I didn't write, like, the words didn't come from me, only like the scenarios that I put those characters in, but they're real people, real situations. And it was inspired by my cousin and his divorce. That's how it came about. He was like, Bree, you should write this book. And I'm like, what? Like, I can't do that every time somebody wants me to write a book, but for him, I did. So, and I think it's helpful to people, even though it's completely, worlds away from the teenage stuff,
Absolutely. So staying along the lines as far as relationships, and I have to say, I completely agree with you when you say that, this day and age, for people to have those long-term relationships and marriages is just not happening. I am blessed to have parents that's been married for like 45 years, but, that's just not what's happening, with our generation and even younger. But I would love to stay along the lines of talking about relationships, and if you can share, whether it's through your research, just some tips on how people can eliminate the toxic relationships.
Oh, yeah. I think it starts with knowing your limits. And when you don't know what your limits are, I could tell you this isn't like the best way to find out, but you will definitely find out what those limits or boundaries are when someone crosses them.
Absolutely.
If you just think about basic, again, sort of kind of along the lines of being a teenager or whatever, the first time a teenager, decides they want to be involved with someone, they have to decide how comfortable they want to get, with the touching, okay, with the kissing. How far is too far? And it's the same thing with toxic relationships. If someone is violating you or or even making you a little bit uncomfortable, that is giving you an idea that, you know what, you're crossing my limits here. I need to say something. But perhaps you don't know what to say or, you know, how to say it in a way that it will come across. Because for some people, they will continue to test you as long as you let them. It's just like, you know, the easy example is children, right? You know, if you are going to give your child what they want in the grocery store whenever they scream and cry, they learn that you are going to, as long as I push mommy, she's going to give me what I want. And it's the same thing with these other people, you know, and it's not so much that it's always someone being toxic as far as, you know, physical or verbal abuse. Sometimes it's not that blatant. Sometimes it's just these little innocuous comments, like these little things under their breath or these things that they say off to the side, you know, trying to make you feel guilty about certain things. Like, well, you know, we family. You know, you're my cousin, we family. You know, you're my girl, you're my best friend. You know, you're supposed to, like implying that you're supposed to do this for me because you're my blank. And the only thing that you really have to do, you know, is like pay taxes and, in my case, stay black and die, right? You don't really have to do anything else. And
that's right.
When you decide that you're going to not deal with the issues that are bothering you, not deal with the toxic behavior, you're enabling it to continue. So instead of it being a little kid having a tantrum in the grocery store, it's an adult having a mantrum because you don't want to let them hold a couple of dollars or, you know, whatever the case. And it's like you have to get to the place where you value yourself, you honor yourself, you believe that you are important, you're not last on the list. When you start to believe those things about yourself, you will not tolerate anyone. I mean, not even mama. Nobody can put you down, you know, and get away with it. You know, you don't have to deal with that. And some people really do believe that, you know, they have to take it because, you know, a person is related or whatever. You don't have to take it. You don't have to. It's a choice that we make when we decide how much do we want to put up with. And I think that the really horrible cycle is that when you have put up with so much for so long, you start to turn on yourself. You know, it's like a vicious cycle. It's like, you know, the altercation happens or the situation happens, and then afterwards you feel like so alone and ashamed and, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, or why did I let him do that, or why did I let her say that to me? She always says that and I never say anything back. You know, I'm just, you know, a wimp or whatever. And we start to put ourselves down because we know that this other person is not treating us right. We know it. So I don't know if I really like fully answered your question, but I want to stop right there just in case because I kind of get really amped up about this topic and I go all over the place. But it's like, because I just see so many people, and I deal mostly with women and females, I see so many women and young girls that just, you know, they start down that path, and it's so hard to get them back to value themselves. But when I tell you, there's some people that you look at and you know, and men do this too. They look at a person and like, well, you know what, this chick looks like she's not going to take no mess. I'm not even going to try, you know.
That's right.
Or they'll try once, okay, once, and that's it. Once they find out, they move on to the next person. They like, let me see who my next victim is going to be because she's not having it.
That's right.
You could be one of those people that's not having it. You can give off that aura of confidence, even if you have to fake it till you make it. You can give off that aura of confidence that says, don't mess with me. I love myself. I know my value. You can't get over on me or make me feel bad about, you know, standing up for myself.
Absolutely. That is really great advice. Absolutely. So I want to switch gears just a little bit to talk more about you being a life coach. What methods do you normally use for coaching, and how has being a life coach truly impacted your life?
Oh man, you know, when I did the life coaching thing, I was just like, wow, like I don't really use that title all the time, but, you know, I don't put the letters after my name or anything, but I just feel like it's an honor to be a part of this industry, you know, however you get there. It's an unregulated industry, so a lot of people can say that they're a coach and they're not. But I remember before I ever did it, I was talking to somebody that I met on Twitter, and he and I are cool now. We've met in person and everything. But when we were on Twitter, we had a talk about something. I don't remember what. And he was a life coach, and he told me, after he talked to me the first time, he said, you may not be certified, you may not have done any training or anything, but you're already a coach. I know you are. Now you can just make it official. So a lot of times when there's things that we want to do or things that are in us, you know, you might need a professional validation from the world perhaps, but if you already have it, there's nothing to fear. Or if you want to have it, you know, and you want to get those skills. So I do believe that I was a coach long before I decided to get certified. And when I started my podcast, Kicking It with Daree, that was the thing that I wanted to kind of be, was a personal development, you know, guru. And, you know, the whole everybody that's on Super Soul Sunday, basically, like all those people. I wanted to be like all those people. Even if, you know, I didn't need to be famous, but I wanted to be in some ways like a lot of those people. And I felt like, in a way, not trying to be like Oprah, but just using that analogy, Oprah started off as being a reporter and a journalist, and she interviewed lots and lots of people, and she, you know, became so famous and rightly so, and so successful and so rich and everything, and so inspiring. And I said, well, I want to be sort of like, kind of like a mini Oprah, but on a podcasting level, on an audio level. I don't necessarily, at this point in my life, strive to be on TV. I mean, if it happens, that's great. But I wanted to, you know, again, using my voice. My main thing was using my voice and audio. And I said, if I could interview some really awesome people, it doesn't really matter to me if I have that, you know, certified life coach title designation or not, because I know I'm a coach. I know I have things that I can share with people and inspire people. And so I'm sort of like Oprahing my podcast. I'm like interviewing a lot of people, and then at some certain point I decided that I would do some solo episodes when I got comfortable with it. Now, as far as the methods that I use, you know, my main thing was to like really help people get unstuck and empower them to transform like those mindsets and those limiting beliefs and patterns that they, you know, needed to break so that they could, you know, be more empowered, you know, like your show. Like, empowerment is what we're all about.
Absolutely.
And those mental strongholds are the things that really get us, you know, what we believe on the inside manifests on the outside. So if you can't internalize it in your head and in your heart, then you'll never act out the behaviors. You'll never speak up for yourself. You'll never stop enabling people. You'll never get out of a bad relationship. It's got to start in your mind and heart, and, you know, that willingness, instead of just going back to old habits and things that don't serve you well. So, like I said, the podcast is like an extension of my coaching. I don't really have a lot of special tools that I use, but one of the techniques that I always like to use, and a lot of coaches do, is journaling, because I've been doing it almost all my life. That's just a way that I like to give people prompts and have them, even if they don't share the journal with me, which they don't really need to, that's just an optional thing. I like for them to be able to get those thoughts out. And I personally like paper, because there's something physiological about writing on paper with a pen that is different, and it releases different things than typing or doing it on a mobile app. So I am not coaching any particular clients at this time, like one-on-one or group coaching, but I do always welcome feedback on the topics that we discuss on the podcast, because we're always addressing personal development issues.
Awesome. So, I mean, you just mentioned your podcast. If you can go into a little bit more detail as far as, you know, sharing what your podcast truly entails and what it's about.
Oh, yeah. So my podcast is called Kicking It with Daree, without the G. So it's like kicking it, like, me and you are from a certain era, so we know what that means, but people really think I'm talking about, kicking something like I'm kicking the cat or something, and no G, okay? No G. So anyway, it's we're and that's what we're doing. We're just kicking it. We're just hanging. We're just talking. Like me and you were talking. Like this could well be kicking it with Jaresha right now, because I'm just like we're just talking.
That's right.
But yeah, I interview women. I used to do a weekly podcast, and now I've gone to bi-weekly. And sometimes most of my interviews, I would say the first couple of years, it was like really all interviews, and then I started to gradually do more solo solo shows where it's just me. And it's interesting. I used to think that if I did solo shows, I knew that I would have enough to say to make it worthwhile, but I didn't know that some of those shows would be more popular than the interviews. And I'm like, people really want to hear what I have to say. Like, okay, that's pretty cool. Well, and that's what I want to do. We always want to be of service, right? But yeah, we talk a lot about a lot of personal development issues. We talk about our mindset. We talk about self-care. We talk about dealing with toxic people. We talk about. I remember an episode where we were talking about etiquette. Just like business etiquette, personal etiquette, being on an airplane, and you might not think that's personal development, but it kind of is, because you have to be somewhat developed to not punch the person behind you when they keep kicking your chair on the airplane. You had to have a certain level of knowing yourself, knowing oneself, and being patient in order to not hurt them. So, different things like that, so like everyday stuff that, we all go through, because like I say all the time, I love to spread positive messages and be positive, but it's not natural. Every single day I have to make myself be positive. I'm not naturally optimistic. I'm naturally pessimistic. I'm naturally like, the person that would mutter something under her breath when something goes wrong, or, sigh in traffic because I hate traffic, things like that. So patience is hard for me. It's something that I'm always working on. I'll never be self-actualized with personal development, never. And personal development is personal. So, there's things, I talk about a lot of things that I deal with, but then, my guests come on and they talk about things that they see with their clients, those people that actually see clients, or sometimes I'll talk to authors, and so they have different types of businesses. So I think it's a really good time. There's lots of different perspectives. There are a few men that I've interviewed, but I would say probably 90% of my guests have been women. So, we all can relate to each other. And, I mean, there's even an episode where we're talking about, our periods and why we need to talk about our periods, because there's so many, of us that grew up, and it was like a big, it was very traumatizing to see that blood and not know what was happening. We were dying, So we talk about it all because we just kicking it.
That's right, and it's real life discussions and conversations. So absolutely, I absolutely love that. So today's empowerment quote was actually by Ayanna Van Zandt, and it's, if you really want to live your life to the fullest and realize your greatest potential, you must be willing to run the risk of making some people mad. People may not like what you do. People may not like how you do it, but these people are not living your life. You are. Could you share with the listeners what this quote truly means to you?
Oh, yeah. I think, like, in essence, she's kind of saying, like, you can't please everyone, and you shouldn't try. You shouldn't try, There's always going to be people out there that are controlling, people that think they know better than you, people that don't want you to change. When I was talking a few minutes ago about the toxic people, those people don't want you to change. They don't want you to learn yourself. They don't want you to express yourself. They don't want you to set boundaries, because that threatens them. Then they have to face themselves. If you change, that is the easiest way to make somebody else change. People want, I'm going off a little bit on the side, but I just thought of this, so bear with me for a second. when sometimes we might, say a prayer or think to ourselves, I wish this person would change. The easiest way, maybe not the easiest, but I think the most direct way to change someone else, because I really don't believe that you can change anybody. The easiest way to change someone's behavior with you is for you to change your behavior with them.
Yeah.
You have to stop allowing certain things that shouldn't be allowed. You need to maybe be silent when normally you are apologetic, or be apologetic when you were being silent, and saying, oh, I'm sorry, forgive me for not letting you know and letting this go on so long. Let me tell you, what's really good. And I'm thinking about some of Iyanla's episodes of Fix My Life, where she's telling people to face each other and say, forgive me for allowing you to treat me badly, because they're letting you know that we're not apologizing because we didn't do what you wanted. We apologize for letting you think it was okay all these years.
That's right.
I really feel like you can't please everyone. You got to draw the line. You have to know what your deal breakers are. And if you don't really know, then just think about those things that make you cringe. Do you ever, look at your phone ringing and you see the name on the phone and you're like, oh, man, I'm not answering this. I don't want to answer this. Do I have to answer this? Well, if I don't answer this, they're going to know that I didn't answer it. Should I press the button? If you're going through all that, that is a person that probably you need to, deal with, because
absolutely
there might be something in there that's a deal breaker if they're causing you that much anxiety about whether or not you should answer the phone for them. You got to pay attention to how you feel after you interact with people. Does it drain you? Does it cause you to be annoyed or anxious afterwards, even if they've left the room or you hung up the phone? So pay attention to those signals and realize, expect that people will get mad, like Iyanla said. They will get mad when you change, because a lot of people out here, they say that, they're looking out, but they really don't want to see you doing good, because if you change, that means they've got to change.
Absolutely. Oh, that's good. That's good. I love that. So if you could go ahead and share with the listeners what is coming up on the horizon for you.
Well, glad you asked. Next weekend, Friday, June 27th and Saturday, June 28th, I am going to be attending the Hustle Her Way Summit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm one of the sponsors. There's many beautiful Black women entrepreneurs that will be there, and I'm one of the sponsors. We're going to be talking about branding and marketing for women entrepreneurs. I'm not going to be speaking about that in particular, but I need to be around people that can bring me up, because I'm always, trying to learn and grow, and, what's the next thing for me, or network with people, because, we're not all good at everything, and it's always good to have someone in your network that really knows how to do certain things, so that you can refer to them or maybe even hire them, work with them, collab. And I'm going to a bunch of other conferences too. September, I'm going to be going to the Inbound Conference, which is another marketing conference. That's in Boston in September. And then the week after that, I'll be in New York City for a voiceover conference, and then I'll be going to another voiceover conference in November. So I'm all over the place. And then for my birthday, I'm going to Hawaii. Like I said, yes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Sounds like so much fun. I've never been to Hawaii, but it sounds like so much fun. I know you're going to have an awesome time. Absolutely.
Yeah, girl, I put it off for so long. I'm going to do a 2-week cruise.
Oh, yep. Oh, that's going to be nice. Absolutely.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing your amazing story and journey. Please share with the listeners how they can stay connected and, support your efforts.
Sure. So if you want to hear the podcast, you can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever podcasts are free, because they're not sold. Kickingitwithdaree.com is the direct website for that. If you're interested in some of my voiceover work, I do voice commercials and films and other things. That site is called DareeVoiceover.com. And then if you just want some freebies and resources from, my coaching and other insights that I have, that's kickingitwithdaree.com/resources. And if you just want to follow me on social media and just see, what I'm up to, I am at Daree Allen on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It has truly been an honor and a pleasure to have you as a guest on the show tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaresha. I had fun. Like I can't believe it's been an hour. I could keep going.
I know. It goes by so fast.
Yeah, girl.
It goes by so fast. But I wish you nothing but success and nothing but the best and blessings as you continue on your journey.
Yes. Same here. And I wish that for all our listeners, too. I hope they got something out of this so that they can take with them some nugget somewhere.
Absolutely. So, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in tonight's show with our special guest, Daree Allen of Ease. Daree shared her growth journey and some tips to help empower self-love and some insight on how to help us eliminate toxic relationships. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, starting your own radio show, or low-cost advertising highlighting your book, business, or events, please email envisionedb@empoweronpurpose.com. Please tune in next week where you will hear an amazing story and journey from another leader, influencer, and motivator. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the EmPower Hour with Jaresha, where Jaresha speaks with leaders, influencers, and motivators who share their journeys in personal and professional growth, empowerment tips, lessons learned, and keys of success that will empower you to be your best self. Follow Jaresha on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jaresha Moore, and visit EmPowerOnPurpose.com. And remember to be intentional and be empowered, and have a great day on purpose.